All right, we're tracking breaking news. A U.S. official says the evacuation of the U.S. Embassy personnel in Afghanistan is well underway as the Taliban close in on Kabul. In a statement, the Taliban said they were in talks with the opposing side for a peaceful surrender of the capital. And Afghanistan's acting interior minister said Kabul will not be attacked and that they will shift power peacefully to a transitional administration. Now, these videos shot by CNN appear to show U.S. helicopters flying above Kabul. It's believed they're carrying U.S. personnel. Sources say embassy staff are being flown to the airport. There are still plans to leave a skeleton crew of embassy staff behind. CNN has crews on the ground in Kabul, and stay with us for the latest updates. So for more on all these breaking developments, let's turn to Wida Mehran. She's an expert on Afghanistan and violent terror groups, as well as a lecturer at the University of Exeter in England, and she joins me live from Toronto, Canada. Thanks so much for joining us. You have a deeply personal connection to this story, which I'd like to get to, but first I want to lean into your expertise on the Taliban. You study the group. I want to start with your reaction to what we're seeing today. The Taliban at the gates of Kabul, so quickly taking over so much of the country with so little resistance from the Afghan armed forces.
Thank you for having me, Kim, in your program. Yes, it is quite surprising for all of us that the Taliban could advance so fast, at such a fast pace, and reach the doors, essentially the gates of the city, which didn't leave time for any for Afghans to process the whole situation. Many have planned on leaving the country, but could not execute those plans. And the way that the manner that the Taliban has actually advanced so fast raises a lot of questions. The Afghan National Security Forces appear that there was no will amongst them to fight the Taliban in some areas. It appears that there hasn't been much political will to fight the Taliban, particularly in the north and west of parts of the country. And also the manner that the whole peace process was handled, both at the national and international level, has contributed to the advancing of Taliban at such a fast pace. The way that the peace process has been handled has undermined the Afghan government, and on top of that, the troops withdrawal and the manner the troops were withdrawn from Afghanistan also contributed to demoralizing the Afghan National Security Forces, who saw on one hand that there isn't political will amongst the Kabul elite to fight the Taliban, because there is such a fragmentation there in politics, in national politics, and they saw that their former counterparts essentially left the country, sometimes overnight. The manner that Bagram Air Base was left and abandoned without a proper handing over to the Afghan officials. All of that contributed to this whole process. And the Taliban has also been actually accompanied by a number of other terrorist organizations, many of former and current Al-Qaeda affiliates, such as the Tehrik-e-Taliban of Pakistan, the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan, and many other regional terrorist groups who have been fighting alongside the Taliban against the Afghan government.
Among the cities they've taken over in the last few days is Herat, where you grew up under a Taliban regime. So take us through what happened to women and girls like you after they swept into your city.
Yes, I did grow up in Afghanistan and in Herat city, and essentially the Taliban back in '95, they took over the city of Herat. It all happened. There were fights going on. Nonetheless, it all happened overnight. Next morning, we were all, as a schoolgirl, went with my school bag. I went to school, but the doors were closed. We were told to go back home, and women could not go out without being accompanied by a male member of their family. Women could not actually occupy and have any jobs apart from limited jobs at the health sector. Music was not allowed. TV was not allowed. Anybody caught with any videotapes or even sometimes photos of family members that some of them were even killed and Arabs were shamed publicly and beaten up. Women were beaten up even for reasons such as wearing white shoes, because the Taliban at the time announced that nobody's allowed to wear white shoes because the color of their flag was white, and that would have been a disrespect to their flag. It was a life, I always describe it as living at the bottom of a well and in utter hopelessness. And as the life progressed under the Taliban, they imposed more and more restrictions on everybody.
Well, the Taliban have made vague promises to respect women's rights, but many are frankly skeptical of that. We'll have to see what happens in the days and weeks to come. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on with us, Wida Mehran. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.